How do I budget if I'm a business owner? One of the biggest challenges that business owners run into is lumpy cash flow. It's something that almost every business that is out there is dealing with. You can't 100% predict what your month is going to look like. So even if you start off at the beginning of the year and you've got your projections for the year, how everything looks and shakes out and the work you do and the delay until you get the revenue from the work can be really overwhelming. And we want to have a plan in place so that you don't throw the good intentions of having a budget in place that allows you to make progress and have control over your money. We don't want to throw that out. So we need to account for both things. We need it to be tight enough so that we know what we're doing when we receive money, but loose enough so that it can account for these ebb and flow of the money that comes when you're a consultant or you're self-employed or you got your side hustle, you got your revenue that you're dealing with. It's unpredictable. I just sat with somebody for an afternoon. This could be a whole workshop, but I want you to have some short takeaways so that you know how to implement something right now. The first thing that I recommend that you do is what's the nut that needs to get covered every month. What is your bare minimum that if you had that cash in hand is paying for your mortgage or rent, gas in the car, insurance, and you're fed, housed, and clothed? What is that minimum number? We need to know what that number is. So don't think that you've got to get out all of your statements and figure everything out. You probably know what bills you're paying and roughly what you need to have set aside. So give yourself 10 or 15 minutes and write that down, but come up with that number so that you know what that is. I also want you to do two things when you receive revenue. First of all, take care of your taxes because you don't want to get behind on that because it can be very, very stressful. And what I recommend to people that are self-employed is you've got to remove as much stress from your money decision making because your creativity is where all your good ideas come from. And when you're self-employed, you're trying to constantly come up with, this is an offer that's going to sell. This is the way I'm going to achieve this goal. And if you're all wrapped up in the stress about your money, your creativity goes out the window. And so with business owners, I've seen this is that they get stressed about money because they don't have a plan that's working for them. And they're just staring at their computer, like trying to figure out how they can sell the next thing that it just doesn't work. So we need to get you on a plan that's going to work. And a lot of that is make sure that you're not getting tangled up with the IRS. So when money comes in, set money aside so that you know you can cover whatever your load is for the IRS. And the same thing goes for when that money comes aside, set something aside for you. What happens often when people have businesses they deal with this lumpy cash flow and they don't feel like they have enough. So we don't get into the habit of setting anything aside for ourselves. And then we want to wait for some big win that's later in the year. And then we think, and that's when I'm going to save the money. But the problem is that you're not in the habit of saving it. And so it's going to feel like you're losing out on something else if you're waiting for some big win to heal all of these wounds. So you need to get into a practice that is setting money aside for you, just as you are setting money aside for the IRS. I say to people all the time, if taxes go up, we just pay them, but we don't pay ourselves on that consistent basis. And so we need to look at those things first. Money comes in. Okay, I'm setting aside taxes to keep myself out of trouble and to alleviate that stress that can come with an IRS debt. And then the other thing is I'm taking care of myself. I'm putting some money aside for myself. I recommend percentages because it's just easier than trying to figure out what dollar amount you're hitting. And when you have lumpy cash flow, if you have a low month, 10% is just 10%. It's easy to figure out and you're winning. And if you have a bigger month, 10% is a bigger amount. You don't have to try to figure out, okay, well, I was doing $300 a month and then I was only able to do $100 a month. I don't want you to have to keep a complicated spreadsheet in order to win with this. If in your business you've been doing this for a while and you know you have these seasonal lumps and everything, I want you to pursue securing some sort of financing mechanism that can take some of that lumpiness out of it. And that can be a line of credit that you have from your bank. If you have a few years of business behind you, you can go in and sit with a banker and qualify for that. I recommend that people set aside money for an emergency fund for that. But if you're in a tight cash flow situation, then often you don't feel like you have any extra. And I want you to still pay attention so that you know when you've covered that nut for the month, anything above that can get harvested and set aside to prepare for the month that you don't quite hit that nut. So in only a few minutes, the best advice that I can give you is these 3 things. Make sure that you understand what your run rate is. What's the nut you need to cover every month? What is that bare minimum amount that will keep you fed, clothed, lights on, and you're warm and dry? That number you need to have steady in your head. Second thing, make sure you don't get in trouble with the IRS. It's going to stress you out and it's going to make you hate your business. So make sure that when you have revenue coming in, you're addressing that. Third thing, right after the IRS, you are right there. Put money aside for yourself. Because once you get into that habit, then every time the money grows, you're just growing that habit, and you need to be equal in that department with the IRS. We don't want to feel like you're just doing this to pay more taxes. You want to make sure that you are taking care of yourself long term. Nobody looks back after 5 years in business and says, I wish I would have invested less in myself. So make sure that you're putting yourself in that plan.
Hey, it's Melissa here, and what you just saw is one of my top 10 most frequently asked questions. I really hope you found it helpful. To get your specific money question answered, I want you to come over and visit me at either Facebook or Instagram at Melissa on Money. I'd really like to know how I can help you specifically. Also, if you're looking for free money training, you can find that at melissapaul.com. Thanks.